All right.
Wait, what are we doing again?
Hi everyone, it's Adrian.
And I'm Raynor from theshylion.
Welcome back to ALTERKNIT. Well, I'm super excited to actually have you on the show, but I'm nervous to have someone else on the show because normally it's just me going, hi, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, you say you're excited now.
I'm sure it will be at the end as well. So, you introduced yourself as Raynor from theshylion.
Yeah.
What is theshylion?
Theshylion is my blog, which is kind of quasi-hibernating. But it was my blog where I talked about knitting, crochet, any of the random crafts that I get into because I'm not monogamous at all.
Okay. I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
But now you've just...
I gave it away
a knit
for
haul.
free. Yeah.
Well, that's what a knit haul would do. And you've also got a channel here on YouTube.
I do, but it's a bit of a mishmash as well. At the moment I'm doing booktube videos where I talk about the books that I'm reading, what I want to read, stuff like that.
Because, and I noticed that you've had a bit of a gap there too, because you've got a couple of tutorials, crochet tutorials from about 3 years ago. and then there was a bit of a gap, and then I think you started back just a few months ago with the book tutorials.
Yeah.
Those, I don't crochet, you know this, I don't crochet, but it kind of, I was like, yeah, this is a good tutorial, and it makes me kind of want to learn the skill. I still don't really want to make things, but have you thought about doing more of the YouTube tutorials for knitting or crochet?
Yeah, I think I will eventually get there. They're kind of awkward to film, but once you get them right, I think they're beneficial because I think YouTube is a much better place to learn stuff like knitting and crochet than books sometimes.
Well, absolutely. I mean, definitely for me, I learned from YouTube. I've got the books, and you've seen I've got June Hammond's Hyatt's book, and it's a Bible.
Yeah.
But when it gets to those diagrams of this is how you do the stitch, my brain just goes, see ya, and I can't understand what these diagrams are. So how did you learn from the internet, or did you learn from family or from books? I mean, how did you get into it?
I was pretty lucky because my mum crocheted and knitted.
Yep.
And so on summer holidays and stuff like that, I would get really bored. And she would be like, you need to stop talking to me. You need an activity. I'm going to show you how to crochet. I'm going to show you how to knit. And so I think a lot of people don't have someone who already knows how to knit and crochet to show them. And it's hard to sort of convert that 2D image into 3D space.
Absolutely. My mum is a knitter. Well, she will tell you that she used to be a knitter, and I think once you're a knitter, you're always a knitter. And she would knit she talks about the Starsky and Hutch jumper, which...
That would have been amazing.
It would have been amazing, and she can't understand how she did it with 2 young children running around. I'm thinking, I do vaguely remember some annoyance at miscounting or something because I was talking. But my mum hasn't knit for a long time, and she's kind of gotten back into it because I started, it was a blanket. Not a baby blanket, like a proper full-size blanket.
Yeah.
Got a little bit sick of it and said, here you go, you take this. And then she started knitting that, and now she's knitting fisherman rib scarves and things that she hasn't learned before. So it's really fun to kind of be teaching my mum, even though she used to knit a lot in the past as well.
Yeah. Well, I think, I don't know if it's because of the internet or what, but maybe countries are more open culturally to other influences, but I think with my mum everything was very stockinette or garter stitch. And now there are so many other stitch patterns and
combinations of knits and pearls.
Exactly, and different methods like intarsia, Fair Isle, which have always been around, but I think in the past it's been very vanilla.
It has, and it's really interesting. I've spoken to older generations who have been knitting for longer than I've been alive, but they don't know how to do the knit stitch, or everything has been shapeless, like it's always scarves because there just hasn't been that knowledge of decreasing and increasing.
Yeah.
Which I think, it's a brave new world of knitting, and more people are being a little bit more experimental with it, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time when people learn to knit, they're always told to do a scarf. And a scarf, there's no increasing, there's no decreasing, it's just the same all the way along. And so it doesn't teach you how to increase or decrease.
Exactly.
It doesn't show you yarn overs. It doesn't show you slip stitches.
No.
It doesn't show you any of those other basic building blocks that.
And if it's a garter stitch scarf, it's only teaching you the one stitch.
Not even pearl. Yeah.
That's right. I was saying to Reese the other day, I read a website when I was like researching how to start knitting, right? Because I'm a big geek and I was doing this for weeks before we actually knit. And one of the things that I found on a forum was someone saying, I wish I had learned how to do knit and purl together at the same time, because I only learned how to do the knit stitch, and I did that for so long before I purled that now I can't purl anywhere near as well as I can knit. And so I was like, all right, I don't want to just start off with a scarf. I went a bit stupid though, and I'm like, I'm going to do a blanket, which is ridiculous.
I don't think it is ridiculous. I think when you learn, you should just jump into the deep end.
Right, but I think a hat is a perfect beginner project.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because you can knit that as a flat thing, and I did. My first beanie was ridiculous because I had just got my Addy clicks, the circular needles, and I started this beanie and I knit it flat on the circular needles and then seamed it up, which is kind of stupid, but that's what the pattern was.
Yeah.
But you get shaping, you get knit, you get purl. You can even get knitting in the round at the very beginning, and I think that's a good way. Stuff. Yeah, jump into it.
Yeah, and I think as well, like you've got to pick something that you're passionate about, because that'll give you the motivation to keep doing it.
Absolutely.
Whereas with a scarf, you might get like a foot along it and then just be like, I'm so sick of this scarf, I never want to see it again. But then you haven't learned that much.
And I do really think it's important to have a project that's going to get finished relatively quickly. That's why I think a blanket's not a good idea. Because it's going to take you forever if you I knit so slow.
But if you're excited about it, that's fine. But like I think, like you said, a hat is great because it's kind of that instant satisfaction of, I have a project that is finished.
Yep.
It might look misshapen and weird, but I made a hat for the first time.
My first one may have looked like a grey Santa hat. So you're visiting family.
I am, yes.
And this is actually your hometown.
Yeah, I grew up here. I left when I was 18.
And you now live in my hometown.
Melbourne.
Of Melbourne.
Yeah.
So what's Melbourne like for knitting?
I mean, I can't compare it to too many places except Brisbane and Toowoomba.
So Brisbane being probably one of the smaller cities and Melbourne being one of the biggest cities in Australia.
Yeah. Melbourne is kind of a knitting mecca.
Jealous.
It kind of is, because there's so many yarn stores. There's a lot of community around. Well, a lot of crafts, not just knitting. So I go to a knitting group at Morris & Sons on Collins Street in the city. There's a friendly plug. And we have knitters, we have crocheters, we have Tunisian crocheters, we have people doing tapestry, we have people doing cross stitch.
That's amazing.
All sorts of quilters. Well, I mean, they don't really come to the group, but people in the group also quilt.
So what's that? Does that feed your creativity and does that inspire you?
Oh, it's a blessing and a curse, because there's that kind of positive feedback and that community feeling like, yeah, we're all knitting, and then someone will bring something in that they made that's from some other craft, and then you're like, oh, I want to do that too.
Right, so it's a distraction as well.
It's a distraction, and it causes me some hoarding problems.
Right.
But,
we don't have those sorts of problems, right?
There are worse things to hoard than fabric and yarn.
Absolutely. And you worked at a yarn store.
Yeah, I was very lucky. And that kind of, sort of blew my stash out quite a lot. Because people would return balls for whatever reason. Maybe it was that there was like a manufacturing issue or too many knots and stuff like that. And that would just sit out the back and it would just get binned. So we would just be like, oh, I need this for a project, I need this. And then sometimes we would be knitting samples for the store. So you could knit all this beautiful yarn that you couldn't afford. And so you get the experience of playing with the squishy, lovely, but you have to give it back at the end. But it's like, but you can say, I knitted with that, and it was great.
So my fantasies are pretty much confirmed then. There's yarn on tap, plenty of time to knit.
Yeah. And you get to teach people to knit a lot. Like, people will bring their projects in that they're having trouble with, And if it's not too busy, of course, you can sit down with them and talk them through it, and that's always really a fun experience. So yeah,
maybe I'll retire and own a yarn store and just have people teach me how to do things. That'd be fun too.
Oh yeah, you learn some stuff too, because you get these people who come in who've been knitting for decades, and they will talk you through stuff that you've never even heard of.
Yeah,
it's kind of amazing.
And now you're crocheting a granny square right now.
Yeah,
because what you've actually brought to work on, you probably wouldn't be able to sit here and talk and do it at the same time.
Yeah, I didn't bring any mindless knitting with me.
No.
This time.
Whereas this is a trapezoid of stockinette, and it's what I've been talking to them about for the last few months.
That's all right.
And they're thrilled with it.
Yeah, knitting takes time. It's cool to watch stuff evolve.
Yeah. It actually, we were talking the other day about, working with black and how some people find that to be a really draining experience to work with black because they just crave to get colour.
Yeah.
And other people have that same issue with stockinette. But we don't.
No. Well, see, I'm a creature of habit and I have my favourites. So I knit with just green most of the time.
Green is your favourite colour?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sea green, forest green. I'm not too into the limey greens, but that's another story.
Right.
And the black is just kind of a nice change for me. And the yarn I'm using is, it's not super fancy, but it's pleasant to work with. And I think I'm doing a lace border on a shawl, and I think it's going to look really fantastic. So it really
looks
doesn't bother
good.
me.
It does look good, even unblocked. 2, I have to synchronize my audio because it's separate.
Yeah, see, I'm real pov. I just do it on the webcam with iMovie and edit as I go.
So what's harder, knitting or crochet?
Well, I can tell you what's easier for me, but it's going to be different for everyone.
Politician answer.
It's
true, but it's a politician answer.
Well, I learned crochet first, so I find that a lot easier.
Okay.
I don't find either terribly difficult, depending on the project or the stitch.
Yeah.
But I find them both the same, but for crochet, for me, it's a bit more second nature because I've been doing it longer. And you only ever have to worry about one stitch at a time. And I find crochet is a little bit more organic and less structured, so I never freestyle with knitting, but with crochet, sometimes I'll just sit down and start crocheting and I'll be like, let's see what happens.
Speaking of freestyle knitting though, people do that.
People do that, but that is not in my set of skills.
No, nor is mine. And I'm interested in you guys freestyle knitters. There is, I think it's Elizabeth Zimmerman. I think she's like the guru of freestyle knitting, freeform knitting, and saying the sooner you get rid of patterns, the better your knitting will be. So I want to know if there are people out there that are doing this kind of thing, which I bow down. It's amazing.
There are.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, Judith, she could knit anything. You could just say, hey Judith, I want this thing that I made up in my head and I've never seen before. And then she'd just be like, blah, blah, blah. Here it is.
That's incredible.
It is. She's a freak of nature.
So wait, this reminds me, I don't know why it reminded me, but how we met.
How we met?
Yeah.
My friend had surgery on his wrist, I think, and couldn't knit. And then he was watching your videos as a vicarious knitting outlet. And then he just randomly shared a video with me saying, this is really cool, I think you'd like it. And then I watched it, and I liked it. And then I added you on Ravelry, and I saw that you lived in Toowoomba. And I was like, this is so weird, you live in Toowoomba. I'm from Toowoomba. I'll be in Toowoomba in 2 weeks.
It was serendipity.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Tony. We hope that your wrists are recovering. So, back to crochet and knitting.
Yeah.
Which one looks better in your opinion?
I think that crochet has a bad rep for looking ugly.
It does.
That's because it does often look ugly.
But look, to be fair though, there are some things out there that I've seen, particularly on Ravelry, and I'm surprised to see that it's crochet.
Yeah. See, that's what I think. I think that knitting and crochet, they're different. They produce different fabrics. They're produced in different ways. They have different textures. So they have different effects when you put them into a garment or a finished piece.
And different uses, I guess.
Exactly. So I love crochet for lace, whether that's a full lace piece like a shawl or like a baby blanket or something like that, or even as an edging. And I think it's great for hats and smaller things that you want chunky for warmth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're amazing. It's amazing for toys, because when I really got into crochet, I was making toys like teddy bears.
And now amigurumi has just exploded.
Yeah, and I think it's
really,
amazing for that.
really cute.
Yeah.
But you know, it surprises me when you say lace. It's really good for lace, because I, as someone who doesn't know how to crochet, would never have guessed that it would be good for lace.
Yeah, I mean, crochet goes back centuries with lace. Like Queen Victoria used to crochet lace doilies and stuff like that. There's a bunch of different ways to make lace, but crochet has been used for ages. So
the more you know,
the
things that you learn. And actually, have you heard of the of a ring shawl?
That's like a massive shawl that you can pull through a wedding ring.
Yeah. Shetland lace. It's so fine that they can do these enormous lace shawls, and you can pull it through a wedding ring.
They're incredible.
It's amazing.
The idea of knitting with lace weight does make my eyes want to bleed, but it is something that I will do one day.
What is this? What would you consider this?
What?
Fingering?
See, that's a weird one, because it's like a heathered yarn, and
it's actually a bit of a thick and thin too.
I had a really similar.
Slightly.
Morris & Sons used to have a yarn that was very similar that was called Willara, and it was considered a 10-ply. But it was very fine for a 10-ply. So
we have gone through this on my channel, the ply system.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
It is what it is. I think,
politician answer.
Well, I mean, I think wraps per inch is probably more accurate.
Wraps per inch is good. Yeah.
You know, it's a good guide. It's not always super accurate.
What aspect of knitting can you not stand?
You're trying to get me away from the politician answer.
I'm going to do it.
Well, look. Courses for horses.
Oh, yeah, okay. All the disclaimers. This is YouTube after all of the disclaimers. It's all personal opinion and preference.
I don't like variegated yarn.
There are a lot of variegated yarn lovers out there.
There are, and I say you do you. But it's not for me.
No, and look, I really love variegated yarn in the skein. Not always.
Yeah.
Speckled, especially, with these like spatters of ink. They're beautiful in the skein, but I mean, you know, this is what I'm knitting, right? I don't want to have stripes of colour.
We're pretty boring today, actually.
And look, I'm going to go out there and say that I'm pretty boring generally. I love the conservative look. And I do love variegated yarns in this game, but I just don't like the knit up in stockinette or anything like that. I think if you're doing a really intricate lace yarn, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, like I say, there's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah.
And I've seen stuff made with variegated that I do like, and I tend to think it works fairly well in socks, because socks is kind of
like
it's like a garment where you can go for broke.
Of course, yeah, and they even have like self-striping ones as well.
And I don't mind self-striping. I think there's a difference, and I quite like that. And I like semi-solid. I love semi-solid.
It's my favourite too.
But variegated is just not my jam.
No, and we've spoken about how much I hate the combination of cable things that have multiple colours in them. I'm like, just pick one or the other. Have multiple colours or have cables. That's my thing. I think it's a bit much, but again, that probably makes someone really, really happy, and that's good. Okay, so let's go with a nice one now. What is your favourite aspect of knitting? What is your favourite part of it? That's probably hard. It's probably a harder question.
This is probably a simple answer. I just think with any craft, what I love about it is that you start with these separate pieces, and then through your own actions and your own efforts, you end up with something completely different that's functional, that's often beautiful, and that will last a long time.
Yeah.
It's not come from a store. It's not going to disintegrate after 3 washes. you've had control
You
over
hope.
almost best case scenario. And you've had control over every aspect of it. You've chosen the colour, you've chosen the yarn, you've chosen the tools you've used, you've chosen the way you're going to go about it. I mean, are you going to use a pattern? How are you going to execute the pattern? I just think that's something really... This sounds really wanky, but it's like there's something really ancient about that.
We're all
that
about
I think
that.
is really special.
I know, I agree. I think that's really nice. And the part that I love the most about it is that it can't get any simpler in the beginning, you know? And as you say, like, it doesn't get any more simple than having some yarn or twine and a couple of sticks, or even just the one hook, right?
Yeah.
And you're involved in that entire process. And these days, we're not involved in any entire process.
Exactly.
I mean, we get food and it's
Process.
packaged in, it's a slice of meat, and people don't realize the process of getting from an animal to that, or even our clothing, we buy that from a factory in China or Bangladesh, and we have no idea how that came into creation.
Exactly.
But this, we are controlling it, and we're there for every step of the way. So you love it.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to love it, because let's face it, you make a jumper that is not as perfect as one that's machine knit in a factory.
Yeah.
And you pay 400 times more for that than you would if you bought it at H&M or Cotton On or one of those ginormous places with the big buying power. So you have to really love the process.
It's so true. I think so often in history it's come about because of necessity, because you couldn't just go out and buy those things.
For sure.
And
it's totally different now. It's not at all necessary.
Yeah, I think it was. I don't necessarily think it was any less a labour of love back then, because you were doing it to protect yourself, to protect your family from the climate, from this, from that.
Sure.
But I think that labour of love is so much more important now, because it's not a necessity and it often does cost more. And there's a lot of man hours that you put into learning how to do it and to improving and all that sort of stuff. So it's not an easy process, and it's not like a quick process.
No.
So I just love all those aspects of like the creation of it, having all that control and that that process of creation, and then all that love that you put into it, which is so wanky.
No.
And it's committed to film.
All right, next question then. What piece of kit would you sell your body for?
Oh. I don't.
Keeping in mind that
I have to try and think of something.
I'm
Because
using
that's
that.
the cool thing. It's so like you can get started with so little.
Yeah. But then also there's just all of this cool stuff out there as well that you don't really need, but it adds to the experience.
Probably one of those full-size looms that take up a whole room.
Right. That is a big bit of kit, and
Well, that's not something I can afford or like have room to put, so I would have to sell something for it.
so I mean the camera just cut out. So, but what I was saying is that I actually don't have an answer to that question.
And I was saying how rude that is because you made me answer.
I tricked. But I'm really indecisive, and so I have like so much stuff. Actually, I wouldn't sell my body for this, but the Lantern Moon rosewood and the ebony needles. I mean, I even want the crochet hooks. I don't even use them, but
They're pretty lush.
They are beautiful. But I want the circular needles and their straight needles as well, in both wood. I love knitting with wood.
Yeah, I love the look of it, but I can't knit with wood because my tension is so tight and wood is so grippy with yarn that it just gets so tight that I can't even...
But I learned the other day that you can get wax. You can wax the needles, and that makes them more like these nickel plated.
Yeah, that's too much effort for me.
It's a lot of effort. You have to love the wood.
Yeah, and I love it, but I don't need to knit with it.
Who is your knitting hero or guru, and do you even have one?
Oh, I do, and I've mentioned her already. My friend Judith.
It's a person that you really know. That's better than mine.
She was my manager at the yarn store when I worked there. She is German, but grew up in Namibia. So she's fluent in like 1,400 languages. And she's been knitting since birth nearly.
With the umbilical cord.
Pretty much, probably. Like Judith, you can corroborate that, I'm sure. just the stuff, we're very on the same level in terms of design and aesthetic. And just the things she will turn out of a weekend, and then she just rocks up and like, oh, I just did this on the weekend.
Wow.
And no pattern, just makes it up. She writes patterns for the yarn store. It's just ridiculous, and it just goes to show like that if you stick with something long enough, like almost anything is possible.
Yeah.
And so if ever I need to know something, I'll ask her, and she will have an answer, and she'll be more than willing to show me.
Which is great to have that kind of person.
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
Does she like design patterns and sell them?
Yeah, well, she's currently the actual designer for that yarn store I mentioned, Morris & Son. So she yeah, so she sells.
Does she have a Ravelry?
So MadamTricot. Is her Ravelry
Description box. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, that's a good plug.
Yeah, I'm all about the plugs today.
and Morris & Sons, you've mentioned them a couple of times, and you're actually knitting with them now.
I am.
Can you? And you're a supporter of this brand?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a stan for Morris & Sons because I worked for them and I loved working for them. And they have an in-house brand, and they just turn out some really delicious yarns, which I don't want to bag anyone, but you know, Lincraft and Spotlight is fine.
But it actually still is quite expensive compared to what you can find out there.
And this is I wouldn't say it's cheap because it's really good quality. It's reasonable for the quality that it is. This is a State, which is a superwash. So if you're knitting for babies and new mothers who do not want to be hand washing stuff, it's great for that. And they have Empire, which is a merino, which is silky smooth. It's delicious and amazing colours. They've got some really great stuff, and they have a website. If you go to that, you can order online.
And I'll link that in the description box below. We were talking about merino the other day and how, Australia is the largest producer of merino in the whole world. So when we buy a yarn here in Australia, it's usually merino.
Mm.
It's actually usually been sent to China, where they will process the yarn and then it gets sent back.
Mm.
Do you love merino? What is your favourite breed to work with?
My favourite breed is probably a bamboo plant.
Okay.
I think bamboo's really nice.
Yeah.
It's nice and smooth and light, and I think it's a good substitute for cotton when it's by itself, and I think it is delicious when it's blended with wool.
Sure.
In terms of animal fibres, I'll knit with anything. But, it depends on what you want from it too, because they all have different properties. So alpaca is great if you want warmth. There's so many. I'll knit for what I want out of the yarn.
Absolutely. Now with bamboo, it's a real political question here.
Oh.
Bamboo is a renewable resource, but it uses intense and environmentally unfriendly chemicals to process. How do you feel about that?
It would be nice if we could find a renewable way to make it. I'm going to be very cagey. I'll be like, renewable is good, but also I love bamboo.
So how do you feel about acrylic yarn?
I think acrylic is great, depending on what you're using it for.
There you go. I agree. I really agree. And I think the days of bad acrylic they're not over because it's still out there.
Yeah.
But you're not limited to cheap, bad acrylic that feels like it's been made out of plastic straws.
Exactly. Like, there is some really good quality acrylic out there.
Do you have any good brands that you...
Even just the Magnum Super Soft that you can get at Big W or
It's
really nice. Sirdar make a really nice acrylic, but it tends to be limited to kind of like baby colours.
Sure.
It's kind of, there's a Japanese company called Pierrot, which makes some nice yarns.
They make a good cotton too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even Cheap and Nasty, I think, has its place. Like amigurumi, it's perfect for that.
You need something sturdy and something washable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find I've used Lion brand yarn. They have a range of pure acrylic that's called Heartland, and it actually has like heathered effect through it.
Yeah.
It's so soft. It's really soft. What I don't like about acrylic, and it's nothing to do with how it feels or how it looks or how inexpensive it is, I can't spit splice it.
I reckon if you try hard enough, you can spit splice anything.
I think if you get a lighter and you kind of wave it underneath it, you might be able to bond it together, but I would not recommend doing that.
With spit splicing, you don't need it to stay together forever. You just have to keep it together long enough to work it in.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know. Maybe you can't, but I'm going to try that.
Now I'm really intrigued and I want to try that, but I'm not convinced. Because I've had some trouble with superwash even.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I have too, but I think I'm so stubborn that I'm just like, you will work.
You will it to bond together.
Yeah.
That's the end of my questions.
Yeah.
That's the end of the question.
Oh.
Do you have any? You've survived.
Do I have any questions?
Yeah.
Oh, I
got to prepare some questions and you don't.
I'm not going to ask any questions because I'm unprepared, and you will just get like 5 minutes of me just being like, what about things?
But we can edit that into something magical.
No, I don't think you could.
I mean, this is really fun though.
It is.
I don't get the opportunity to talk to other people who knit, especially other men who knit either. So it's kind of like a little taste of what life in Melbourne could be like, having knitting groups and people that you can bounce ideas off.
Yeah.
So, if you are prepared to fly back every once in a while at your own expense, then I'd be happy to have you on the show.
Well, lucky I have family here.
How often do you visit?
I try to get here at least once a year, but it does not always happen.
That's not going to work.
Since they put the airport in and I can fly direct.
We have an airport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Toowoomba has a lot of rich families, and one of them just decided to make an airport.
That's right. I was going to say, is it interesting enough to talk about how this airport came about? But it really is, because it's essentially a private airport.
Yeah, I'm stoked about it, so I'll tell anyone who listens. I hope to come back more often because of that. So
well, if you do, it would be great to have you back on the show.
For sure.
Just to break up the monotony of my face for a start. Thank you so much for coming to ALTERKNIT, to this lush studio here.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure. And if you're in town next, come back and visit all my good Judies over here.
For sure.
And so remember to check out Raynor's website. His YouTube channel will be in the description box below, as well as a link to, you've still got an active blog?
Yeah.
To his blog. And next fortnight, it will be a TMI, so stay tuned for that. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so you don't miss any new videos. And I will catch you on the flip side. Bye.